Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for your patience. Again, this is Melissa with Microsoft Corporation. On behalf of Gold Systems and Microsoft, we want to thank everyone for joining this afternoon. We hope that this will be very informative. And next slide, please. There we go, loading up. All right, so let's go ahead and kick off the event. So you're attending today the Customer Focus, Build Confidence, Trust and Relationships hosted by Gold Systems. And we will be covering a combination of unified communications and the software solution provided by Gold Systems. Next slide, please. Okay, from an agenda perspective, we're going to do a quick round of introductions. We're going to focus on the customer service challenges facing financial institutions, and then we're going to have a conclusion. Next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of introductions, we've got two fantastic speakers today for everyone's review. We've got Victor Dossi from Microsoft. He serves as the lead technology strategist within the Microsoft Corporation, and he's regarded as an expert serving his clients on financial services in terms of Microsoft strategies. We also have Terry Gold, who is the co-founder, CEO, and president of Gold Systems, which is an independent software development company. It creates self-service software within the customer service industry. He's got over 20 years of experience in business and software, serves as the board of advisors for several local technology companies, and Gold Systems has been named to the 500 fastest growing private companies since 1998. With that said, I want to go ahead and turn this over to Victor to kick us off.
Hi, thanks Melissa, and many thanks for you for joining. I'm Victor Dossi, as Melissa said, and I'm the industry technology strategist for the Worldwide Banking Organization at Microsoft. I just thought I'd spend a minute to explain my role and a bit of Microsoft's presence in financial services. My role is to be able to take technologies and see emerging technologies and understand how those can be applied to solve problems in our banking industry. One of the benefits of this worldwide role is that I get a chance to listen and see trends as they're emerging, and even frankly emerging in different parts of the world. So to accompany that, I'm fascinated with the value and the potential of what communications can bring. I think they're a huge piece of technology that can start to help us really transform that customer experience to a new generation. Sometimes folks wonder about Microsoft's presence in banking, so I just wanted to explain a bit. My responsibility is to look over that Microsoft platform that you see on the right, and also work with industry partners such as Gold Systems, which you see some boxes on, on the on the right. This is really what we see as a great combination for bringing solutions to the marketplace. So we bring the platform capabilities that deliver across your premises or into the cloud, and we do that in conjunction with great partners like Gold Systems. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Gold Systems, to Terry Gold, who can explain just a bit of an overview of Gold as well before we dig into the discussion.
Thanks, Vic. So if I could get the next slide, please. All right. Well, when I go to trade shows, people often look at my name badge and then my shirt and wonder if there's a connection there. And there is. My partner and I started the company over 22 years ago. We started out doing IVR and CTI solutions. Both of us came out of Bell Labs at the time. We see a lot of the things going on today that were going on then. I'm going to tell you in a bit a story about our very first customer. But over time, we began to realize that we didn't need to reinvent the wheel every time we built an application for a customer. And we built a product that we called Vonetix. And the term is coined from the idea of voice and network integration. We did that in the early 1990s, and Avaya shipped that product on all of the Avaya conversants and IRs back then. It went around the world. And I'm sure many are still in service today. But then in 2003, I got a call from Microsoft, surprising me, telling me they were going into this market. And invited us to be one of the first partners working with unified messaging because of our PBX experience and contact center experience. And we jumped at the chance to do that and became one of their leading partners, deploying speech server applications, and then as that evolved, Office Communication Server, and finally Lync. And I want to define some things here. We talk about unified communications. We've been working in it for many years now, but it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. What I think of it is we're combining Microsoft Lync, which is Microsoft's latest version of the product for unified communications, along with Exchange, so that I can, at my desktop, go from IM to voice to video. I can do conferences from a few people to hundreds of people, and I do it with one set of applications, or one application really, that work well together. But you know, these are just tools, so it's really about collaboration. And how this has affected Gold Systems, it means that we now have people working from home, working in other states, and it's sometimes hard to even know where they are unless they mention it, because it's as if they're next door to us. I see someone's presence, I see that they're available, I IM them, we might go to a voice call, or we might stay in IM. So Lync is a communications tool, but it's also a platform, because Microsoft has made it very open for partners like Gold Systems to build onto it. Now, that's going to be relevant to you in the financial industry because of the problems you're trying to solve. We started this first webinar with this idea of the customer services challenges that we have. We have them, you have them. You know, we're trying to build confidence, trust, and relationships with our customers. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to our first customer. We're trying to provide a consistent experience. We do a lot of human factors work here to try to make our applications easier to use. And the first lessons you learn as a human factors person is to be consistent. But there are some buts to that, and I'll talk about those as we get more into that. You are responsible for your company's resources, and you've got a tough job. I know that. We have worked with, gosh, I don't know how many financial institutions, but you saw some of the big names and then some of the smaller banks and financial institutions. We know it's a tough job to stay competitive out there, and it's our job to help you do that. And through this webinar, we're going to give you real ideas about how to do that. Yeah, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, just so, you know, I said we get a chance to listen and hear a lot from around the world, and you know, the focus on customer service, customer centricity, customer satisfaction has been just huge and resounding throughout the world. You know, I think the way you've laid these out, confidence and trust, absolutely, a consistent level of experience, I think that these are really spot on. One of the questions that I think is interesting is that we hear this kind of conversation quite often. And so I kind of was going to challenge and just say, you know, so how's this journey going? Mm-hmm. You know, if we look especially into the contact center world, we still see some real challenges. And in the banking industry, across all of the channels, we still have some real room to improve. Part of the reason that I'm so excited about what communications can bring to the table as far as customer service, but also employee efficiency is just that. It has so much potential to help this. I did, in preparation for this, go out and look at the social sphere, because there's a lot of social sentiment out, and looked at, customer satisfaction as a whole across the United States, and found an interesting report from the consumerist.com. 70% of households had had a service call and had rage as a result of that service call. 100% of the customers surveyed had had a bad experience on the phone trying to get customer service. And interestingly, these kinds of impacts that are still happening today come at a significant cost. It's interesting that while people aren't satisfied with the customer service they're getting, the cost to serve is tremendously high. I thought this was interesting, between $2 and $7 for an average call, which is whether they're happy or not happy. We all know that an unhappy customer is one that costs more actually to serve, but also thought it was interesting around how much potential there is to utilize some of these technologies to really actually not only service the customer, but actually deflect and anticipate what they're going to be up against, so that you can deflect some of those calls. I thought that was an interesting kind of a disaster story, if you will, and kind of the state of where things are. And I thought it might tee up interestingly, maybe a contrasting story that you had, Terry.
Well, it is a contrasting story, but it didn't start out that way. And this is our first customer. You can see these are some of the contact center agents as well as some of the managers that we worked with, and they were just the best people to work with most of the time. When there were issues with the system, they were quite demanding, but they had the right to be that. So this was our very first customer. We were pretty wet behind the ears, and another vendor had already failed with this company. They had gone in and had not been able to get the IVR system going. And for those of you who've been in the business as long as I have, you might even remember this bank, if not by name, by the fact that the CEO kind of became famous for a while there by saying that that bank would never adopt voicemail. He wanted people to be able to talk to a person. So that was the setup that we got when we were invited in to try to repair what the previous vendor had failed at, and knowing that management was highly skeptical of any sort of automation, because they were good people. They were in Fargo, North Dakota, and they wanted their customers to feel when they called up just as they felt when they walked into the branch. But we were able to do that, and we did it by keeping an eye on the human factors of it. Even back when we were doing touch-tone, we employed people who understood how real people use these systems. And real people, they just want to get their bank balance or transfer their money. And here now, 22 years later, 20-some years later, things haven't changed too much. And Vic's right. When I talk to people outside of the industry, I hear these concerns and these problems and even rage of people. They like to tell me their favorite bad IVR system or their favorite bad customer service experience. Usually it's not with a bank or a financial institution, so I doubt if any of you are responsible for those stories. Usually it's government or some sort of utility who's just not putting the effort into taking care of those customers. In preparing for this, I found a survey that they surveyed people running contact centers, and specifically in the financial services sector. And I was looking at that thinking, how do I make this really relevant to you? And what jumped out at me is you have a really tough job. I mean, everybody said improved customer satisfaction was the #1 thing. Something like 97% of the people said that. And I'm sure most of them really felt that way, and maybe the rest were saying that because that's what they've been told to say, is that the customer's #1. But honestly, from some self-service systems and some contact center experiences, it's hard to believe that. And I think the other other points that you have identified as being as expected of you explains that. So while improving customer satisfaction, you're supposed to increase revenue, achieve your metrics, and decrease cost. Well, right there, that seems counterintuitive. You're supposed to handle all the problems on the first call, and your agents have to be happy in the process of doing it. And you said while growing or maintaining staff numbers, but often contact centers are under pressure to keep the numbers low, especially during busy hours, and all the while reducing staff attrition rates. Now, my friends out at Metropolitan Federal Bank had a pretty low attrition rate, but I've heard of contact centers that have 100% or 200%. That means every single person statistically in the contact center is leaving within the year. And I think they do that because they also have a hard job. Vic, you want to add any comments to that?
You know, no, I think, yeah, I think you're spot on.
You agree they have a really tough job?
Well, they have a tough job. The one thing that I'd say, I'm a tough customer for the banks. I'm as big a skeptic as the rest. And, you know, I do think it's fair to say that we have some real room to improve as far as the banking goes. You know, a lot of where we see this really heading when you talk about these expectations is really to start to use some technologies that can help us not only improve that customer satisfaction, but also improve some first call resolution, et cetera. You know, a lot of our processes are traditionally, well, let's say they're a bit traditional, which means that there's a lot of latency built in. In the new world, in the new age, the times when people have mobility and social networking and they expect instant responses, we really have some room to improve and some capabilities that we can do that. So things like expertise or skill-based routing that really gets implemented across the enterprise instead of only in contact centers. We're seeing examples of this where we're starting to actually augment staff in the contact centers by utilizing idle people out in the branches, et cetera. So it brings an interesting possibility to be able to, one, achieve those metrics and increasing the revenue and satisfaction, but also making the job for the employee easier because they can get instant answers to the questions that they need in order to serve that customer, and it can be great for the business as well because you can do that with actually less staff instead of more.
Yeah, you know, you might have expected that a couple of techies like Vic and I would say that the answer is technology, but really, if you have to improve customer satisfaction and increase revenue while decreasing costs, assuming you have a reasonably well-run organization, there's just no other way that I can think of. I once told a customer some time ago that was complaining about our rate for some development. I said, do you want me to hire less capable programmers to work on this? Because that's the only way to get it down from where it is at that point. And you're in the same boat. You can't decrease costs really any other way but finding more clever ways of utilizing the people you have. Vic, you mentioned agent satisfaction, which I gotta think that's on a lot of people's mind. It just must be horrible to have to deal with these high attrition rates and the costs of training and just the drama that must come from that kind of attrition. One of our customers, they're not a banking customer, but one of the AAA organizations, we put in an automated system. Those of you who live in the northern climates know that when you go off the road, you call AAA and you ask them to send a wrecker, and then every 5 minutes you call again to see if the wrecker's on the way because it's cold sitting in the ditch. Well, you know, by the time these people called 4 or 5 times, they were cold and angry, and the agents were starting to get pretty fed up with it too. After all, they had driven on those same roads to get into work that day. When we put in an automated system that they used a person to handle the first call because they want to make sure that that person is safe. But then for the callbacks, we could recognize that it was a callback, and we could just tell them the estimated time for a wrecker is now 20 minutes, for instance. They could still get to a person, but they didn't have to. And not only did the customer not have to wait for a person to find out, but it turns out the agents were more satisfied too. Those people you saw in my earlier slide were all very nice people, and they told me they loved helping their customers. They didn't particularly love giving the same person the bank balance 2 or 3 times a day, so they also welcomed automation. Now, we do have to bring it to the customer, though, because they've got a whole different set of needs. And I think as a consumer myself, my number one thought about dealing with a financial institution is that my money's safe. Is my money safe? Now, I can't help you with that. We're probably all in the wrong department to worry about that. But I can tell you this, that when I walked into my bank branch, if the carpet was dirty, I wondered what else was wrong. It's like getting on an airplane and your seat back is broken and you wonder if the same people are working on the engines. I think this same attitude applies when a customer calls your bank or goes to your website or tries to use your mobile app. If it doesn't work, it hurts your brand and they start to feel like, maybe something's going on that I should be worried about.
Sure, and I might add, this is something that we're starting to see is that faster resolution to issues, the ability to understand the experience and the interaction that the customer has had across multiple business lines or multiple channels, which I know from a systems perspective is always very tough. But from a communications standpoint, I'd contend we can always contact, chat, mail, or talk to someone. It's much easier. The system integration to join siloed businesses so that we can provide a customer with a feeling that we understand them across their interaction with the bank in its entirety is absolutely there, and it can be engineered much easier than the integration of multiple business lines that are siloed, frankly, by design. So it's quite interesting there. Also, I'd add that it gives a confidence factor. The ability to have valuable interaction with the customers, and I guess I'm stating the obvious, but the value of valuable interaction is that you build customer loyalty. The one thing that I'd say, about customer loyalty and where things get quite interesting as time changes, there's a lot of social sentiment, and there's a lot of examples where people make their complaints known. So in the past, with our traditional business models, we could have a certain level of frustration out of our different channels as far as customer service goes, and it was harder for them to communicate very far. But today, we've seen some studies, 44% of the consumers in the United States have complained via social media some way. And 20% of those expect a response to an issue within an hour, just because of their lifestyle having changed and that expectation being part of their life. And social media has done a lot of that. The interesting thing is that many of those complainers as well move from the institution that they're complaining about. On top of that, we're starting to learn about social media, that the importance, someone's voice and reference or review or sentiment about a customer, or rather about a business, is much more important to their colleagues and friends than is a simple like, for example, on Facebook. So it's not about liking, it's about saying this is really what my experience is, and this is what I like or don't like. And so we're much more exposed as an industry as a whole. And again, contending and moving this back into the collaboration and communications, people expect to be able to have a quick chat to resolve an issue and not go wading through 10 minutes worth of documentation to try to find some sticky policy that may or may not be current. There's all kinds of interesting ways, like I said, to bring value to that customer if we start to iron out that experience.
Exactly. You know, I originally wrote, believe that the customer is important. We want to believe we're important, but no, I want to know that I'm important because I do have so many choices, whether it's banking or cars or internet providers. In the early days of computing, there was a backlash about people who said, I don't want to be treated like a number. We're not just, and I think some banks then had a slogan of, you're not just a number. We need to remember that here we are so many years beyond that, and yet it's still too easy for customers to feel like they're not valued. Low hassle interactions, like you were saying, Vic, about being able to move between the different silos and to feel like they're not forgotten. When I talk to people about IVR and self-service, there's a couple of gotchas that I'm just shocked they're still in existence, and I'm going to talk about how we can help fix that. It's not really a technical issue, but when I think the number one thing people complain about is they call an automated system, and most of the time that works fine for them. They're checking to get their bank balance. We know a lot of people run their finances by calling in every morning and checking to see what checks have cleared. Your highest users of automation are not your highest net worth individuals. But in any case, at some point, we all need to talk to a person. I know what you think my balance is. Now I need to know why you think that's it, because I think it's something totally different. And I'm really stressed about this, so I need to talk to a person. And the number one complaint is we make that too hard. Again, it's not a technical issue. We can make it possible for them to get out to a person every step of the way. And at Gold Systems, we recommend that because there are studies that says that if you let people know that they can get out to a person, they're less likely to try to get out to a person. You know, it's like the finger trap toy. The harder you pull, the more it resists. And I think people can be the same way. If you make them feel like you're trying to keep them from talking to a person, it may make them just want to talk to them all the more. And the other thing, the second thing that people complain about, which is really amazing since I started this company 22 years ago to fix this problem, and we just haven't been able to get to everybody, is a technology called CTI, or computer telephony integration. And that simply means I call into your automated system and I give you my account number, and then I need to talk to a person. I say operator, and that operator doesn't have my account number. It's not that hard, and it's even easier with Lync and with our Vonetix 7 voice product to implement that. And you could take away a lot of customer dissatisfaction by doing that. Okay. All right. So real things you can do, and you know, I've given similar talks like this at trade shows, and Vic called it common sense. I think some of it is common sense. Really, I think what maybe you need is justification to management for the budget to solve some of these issues. We have been known to record a prospect's call handling, their 800 number, and send it to the CEO and say, and I won't do this to any of you, but I just can't believe sometimes that the people who really care about the customer and increasing revenues understand how poorly some of their systems function. So the first rule is to be consistent. Any good user interface has got to be consistent. I sometimes use web applications where it's like they're trying to see how many miles they can put on my mouse as the next button moves around the screen. Don't forget information. That's you've asked me for my account number. Let's keep that with the call or with the transfer from the web to the IM, whatever. Yeah, I know it can be kind of hard to get these systems to work together, but that's what we do. Microsoft makes it easier, and it's worth doing. Now, that said, just one path is often the wrong path. And I'll give you an example here. One of our customers is a state DMV. Can you imagine a more frustrating thing to have to deal with? And then, most states you have to go down in person, but this state you can now do it over the telephone for much of it. But initially, they wouldn't take our advice, and I'm not going to name the state to protect the guilty there, but they would not initially take our advice. They thought that consistent meant it has to be exactly like the website in this particular case. Well, the great thing about dealing with you on the website is I've got a keyboard, and I don't have to remember the interface in my mind as I work with it, as you do with voice. And it just didn't work very well. Ultimately, their customers, their constituents, convinced them that, and we were able to go back in and implement for a fee what we had originally suggested they do in the beginning, which was to have the voice side be different and easier to use because it is voice.
You know, we see, this Vic, just around the consistency that you were talking about, and this one path isn't the right, you know, is often the wrong path. You know, a lot of this we see coming out of device explosions, if you will. We anticipate 4 consumer devices are used by the average American each day. That's on average. So there are a lot of different devices and a lot of different shapes and capabilities of those devices, and so we really are seeing a move when consistent means we can serve the customer in the channel and in the fashion in which they direct they'd like to be served, as opposed to the way we used to direct them to a particular way to be served. But I think it just reinforces your point about consistency. The consistency doesn't mean it has to be the exact same interface, but consistency of service goes a long way. And one thing that we've seen, a big trend here around remote advisor capabilities is to be able to provide customers with a consistent level of service across the entire set of branches in the branch network. What happens today is oftentimes banks, we'll staff a particular branch based on the products that we think we can sell, and we'll have specialists that are qualified to sell those products. In other areas where we don't think we'll have the volume, we won't staff it the same. So we start making product-based, not customer-based, but product-based staffing decisions. And what it creates for the customer is a very inconsistent experience. What happens is I go into branch A, maybe I can get some great services and the exact products that I need. Think about an investment product or some of the additional products that we really want our customers to buy. Those are the ones often that we don't staff consistently. So I come into branch A and I can get all those products and services. But if I happen to go to branch B, I'm told perhaps I need to go over to branch A because they sell that product. And we hear from the customers of the banks quite often that is a huge peeve and something that they're trying to get away from. And we've also seen this start to address staffing issues where I actually can't afford to staff it, and 2, sometimes I have trouble in certain regions in getting people qualified that I can hire and actually staff if I could afford it. And what happens is we see a lot of this expertise being made available in the branch network through communications tools so that we can have a video conference with a specialized advisor, and we can offer a consistent product portfolio across the entire branch network. So a bit of a long-winded statement, but when we talk about consistent, consistent is a level of service that is, you know, much higher than what we've traditionally provided in the past.
And doesn't change, like you said, based on the branch or the method of communicating. You know, there was a Harvard study a while back that I read about that found that people's view of customer service is pretty inelastic, meaning that they have a floor and a ceiling, that if you stay within that, they're going to be happy. They will say, I got good service. If you go below it, they'll be very vocal. Now, the interesting thing about this survey is if you go above it, they're very happy, and then the ceiling just got raised. And so the moral of this study was this saying that you see on motivational posters sometimes of always exceed the customer's expectation is actually very bad advice. because once you exceed the customer's expectation, you've now reset the bar at a higher rate. And if you fall back below that, even if you're still above the previous bar setting, that customer perceives poor service. And so being able to give the consistency without heroics is something we talk about as a software company is important. I got to keep saying, make it easy to talk to a person. That it may seem strange from a guy who's spent more than 20 some years building automated and IVR and speech recognition applications. But again, it's using the technology in the appropriate place. Now, one thing we're able to do because of the Lync Foundation, Microsoft Lync, and because of our product, Vonetix 7 Voice, is we could actually have a call come into the contact center, and let's say the person is checking their bank balance, and they get the bank balance, and maybe they're surprised. Let's say it's a happy surprise. There's $5,000 more in the account than they thought, and they're going to double check to make sure that's not a mistake before they spend it. And so they want to talk to a person. Now, the contact center of today and yesterday worked really hard to get you to the next available agent, which was almost guaranteed to not be the last agent you spoke to. So if you'd called in earlier with a question and now you call back, you're not going to get to talk to that person. And even the best CRM system, you're going to feel like I have to re-explain my story, another pet peeve of people. But working with Lync and our product V7V, we can reach out not just into the contact center, but outside the contact center and look to see if a person is available to take that call, the last person they spoke to, or maybe the person that we think is best for that particular individual. You all deal with high net worth individuals. It might be nice to think about being able to get some of those people out to a VP in a branch rather than just the next available agent. But to be flexible about that, I know one way you try to do that is when a person gets to a certain level, the VP gives them their card with their direct number on it. But unfortunately, often that ends up sending them to voicemail if that person's not available. So with Lync, we can check to see if they are available. Even IM them a message and say, I've got this high net worth individual on the call. Do you want to take their message? And then in the multimodal spirit that we've talked about, that VP could even, let's say they can't take the call. They're already on the call with a high net worth individual, but they could IM, type in a message that says, hi, John, I'm on another call right now, but I'll call you back in 5 minutes on your mobile. And then that gets spoken back to the caller. So Lync, what I found in my own business, and having been on this for, gosh, 5-6 years, I guess, it makes it easier for people to do the right thing. Meaning that if one of you in our question and answer session, which we better hurry along and get to, have a technical question that I can't answer, I could look to see who in the company is available right now, drag them into the conference, and say, hey, can you help me answer this question?
Yeah, I've seen as well. So just to build on some of those scenarios, and this kind of goes towards my earlier comments of being able to reduce costs, optimize staff, but also offer better service. Our high worth customers often come into the branch and do teller transactions. They have regular business at the high counter lines and come in and out of branches without actually being recognized to be a high value customer, and they're coming in every day or quite often. And the concept of having VIP alerts, where an alert provides a real-time message to branch managers or supervisors or customer service representatives that their clients are in the branch has been quite popular. The ability to be able to have a choice of talking to their dedicated advisor. This is in high net worth scenarios that I have seen, but being able to have a choice of talking to their advisor, just like Terry said, if they're available, and if not, give them a choice to be routed to another expert. But it's definitely expertise and skill-based. Finally, some areas that we've seen, besides the this concept of virtualizing the contact center by using staff that are out in distributed branches, is also being able to change staffing models around supervisor approvals. You know, we always have to have one of two caveats in especially small branches. I either have to staff extra people in the branches to be able to approve certain types of transactions in the peer review, and being able to move those kinds of functions into centralized areas so that we can have supervisor approvals working remotely has another great staff optimization. All of these enabled with these kinds of technologies.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next slide. I do want to tie this back to Microsoft Lync. You are all at this moment using it, whether you're using Lync from your desktop or you've used the web to do it. What I hear from our customers as we talk about a Microsoft solution is that we tend to be talking to people who are Microsoft houses, if you will. Just like we used to talk about IBM shops, now we're mostly talking to Microsoft shops. And the people who are administering the servers and the desktops appreciate the fact that they have the Microsoft look and feel with our product, with Vonetix 7 Voice, as opposed to some other brand of IVR that may be running Unix, and it will certainly have different kinds of development and administration front ends. Compatibility is a big thing, not just to other Microsoft applications, and that's a piece of cake. So if you were using Microsoft CRM or Exchange, a lot of the integration with Lync is built in, and we still find customers who have other ideas for going beyond that, because it is so extensible. We find it very easy to integrate there. But it's also easy to integrate into other vendors, and I won't name them here out of respect for Microsoft, but the reality is that most of you have many different vendors in your shop, and you never get the chance to just forklift upgrade everything at once and switch to one vendor. So a lot of what we do at Gold Systems is that integration to make those, what we kindly call legacy systems, continue to work with the new technology. The last thing on this slide I would touch on is that your CIO almost certainly has a UC strategy, according to the surveys that I've seen. Very few don't. And so I would ask you, how do you fit into their UC strategy, and how does the contact center fit into it? The other vendors tend not to think about it this way. They think about, there's contact center, and then there's everything else. There's your phone system for the rest of the people. And Microsoft doesn't have that approach. The idea is that we can have Lync on every desktop, and start to realize some of the ideas that came along years ago when UC first was being talked about kind of breaking down the walls between the contact center and the rest of the show. The next slide, Vic, I think I found this picture. I went looking for, how do I express this idea of your bank's brand? How do I express that? And I found this picture, which I don't know if you all remember this. I really, now that I see it, I kind of remember it. This picture's a little bit older than I am still, but the idea that we actually had that cage, and I've certainly heard it called the teller cage, but it sort of was a shock to me to see this again, because now I walk into a branch bank and there's generally this idea of trying to be close to your customer and to be friendly to them. Well, I think that I've said this already, that your website, your mobile strategy, your contact center strategy, it has to carry that along as well, or all the work you're doing in your branches kind of gets tarnished a bit, so that we can retain the customers, upsell the customers, One of our customers years ago, Bank of Ireland, we were first talking to them about speech recognition, and we had really done I'll say immodestly, we had done a great job for them on their IVR system. It was touch tone, and it was handling 85% of all their calls. And when I talked to them about speech recognition and how that could improve even more the number of people who would stay in the system, and I won't try to do an Irish accent, but they said, we want to talk to those remaining people because those are the ones that we're going to upsell. So they weren't early adopters of speech recognition. They were already automating as much as they cared to at that moment. Vic, any comments on that? And then we'll kind of review some of the objectives we had here.
No, let's review.
All right. Well, when I built this slide deck, I had to put in the notes that these next ones are not a duplicate, although you've seen them. But I do want to review it, that if you give somebody a really nice experience, whether it's the web or mobile or via the phone, that's going to give them a feeling that you are a trustworthy institution. And they will feel important. They won't feel just like a number. We remove the friction as best we can from these interactions. And again, I can't say it enough, let them talk to a person when they want to talk to a person.
Yeah, yeah, I do, just to add and highlight the word friction. You know, if we really think about where our competition in the banking industry comes from, it today is usually targeted at where there is friction, and friction between customer satisfaction or what it takes for a customer to do business, and they'll make it simpler. And if we look at the success of you know, certain different business models, be it direct banks or even some of the traditionals, you know, there's well, I guess suffice it to say, it's just an important, you know, consideration that we always have to keep in mind.
And I did reverse the order of the slides here. I put the customer first because I think that's not just a slogan. And I had a quote in here. I started working on these slides a few weeks ago. That you get what you want by helping enough other people get what they want. And I do believe that. That was said by Zig Ziglar, who just died last week. So I'll give him that little tribute. He was a salesperson, but he believed that you were more successful by truly trying to help other people. Your job, as I said, you have my respect, and sometimes you have my sympathy. And as a vendor, we're right there with you. If a customer is not getting the bank balance they accept, I know your pain, and I sometimes feel your pain from that. That very first customer, Metropolitan Federal Bank, they had something I like to call monitoring by brother-in-law. This was before we had built all the fancy monitoring capabilities, and it seemed like the bank president's brother-in-law was the one who would always catch it when the system wasn't talking to the host. So we're going to try to help you balance these things. I hope you've taken away something today to help you with this. If we can help you justify to your management why these are important, we're happy to do that. We're almost out of time, but if there are questions, we can take them, and we'll certainly would be happy to follow up. That is the point of this, is to get a chance to engage in a conversation with you and try to help you. So I guess with that, we hand it back to Melissa.
Yep, that's correct. All right, thank you all for joining. We are going to go ahead and close out the session for today. Just as a reminder, we do have a session to January 15th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, covering reducing costs and increasing efficiencies using the products described today. So any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to your Gold Systems or Microsoft teams. We're very happy to assist in any way. And again, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone.